Hello, and today we're going to discuss the Spyderco paramilitary, or Para 2, Para 3, sorry. It's this little gem right here. So, I think these knives came out a year ago, 2017, maybe late 2016, early 2017, I think. I think I was aware of them before they came out. Most importantly, for me, that I got a paramilitary 2 in the fall of 2016. And because I had stopped, maybe it was the spring of 2000, I don't know, something. I think the fall of 2016, maybe I actually handled one at a Sportsman's Warehouse, sporting goods store. For those that, I don't know if that might be a Western U.S. thing, but I was just pretty impressed with it. And I'd already owned at that time this guy, just the military. The difference is this one, the military is bigger, and it's got a liner lock, as opposed to the compression lock found on these guys. So I was pretty impressed. So later, at some point later, I ordered online paramilitary 2, all black, regular standard S30V black G10, and then blacked out. And I got it, and I was kind of disappointed in a way, because there's already like a scratch in the clip. I mean, the thing looked used to me, like it had been carried, and the action was absolutely perfect. Like, you know, it was one of those things. And then we're talking brand new out of box, perfect. Pull the compression lock, and the blade literally would swing just like it was on bearings, like just back and forth. And I was like, well, that's cool. But that's kind of odd, being it's a brand new knife. And then the centering was off. It wasn't rubbing, because there's actually a lot of space in there for that blade, but it was off. It was off to a good degree. This one is absolutely flawless, perfect. So I had that knife, and I was like, I was kind of disappointed in a way, because I mean, the knife appeared to have been used. And the clip was scratched up, not in a bad, not bad. I was like, oh, it's gonna get worn anyway, but still, at the same point, I never felt like I had gotten a new knife. So since then, from that dealer, I have bought one more knife, and that knife came sealed in a sealed bag. So, like, in my opinion, if I order a knife, I don't really want somebody digging through there checking, because that's another thing. Is a piece of advice is, well, when you buy a knife, have the person that's shipping it to you or selling it to you look at it, take it out of the box and look at it. Okay, so when I order a knife, then I'm buying a knife that's been pawed through a dozen times. You know, it's bullshit to me, in my opinion. Like, I'll take my chances and just assume that the company is going to send me a good knife, or, you know. So, like, as an example, these Tops knives come in a vacuum sealed bag. Okay, that, to me, that's the shit, because you're getting one that's not been pawed over a bunch of times, if not even once. So, note to dealers, some of us don't want our shit poked at. That would be this guy. So anyway, but the knife was great. So I carried it. Like I've said in my previous videos, I'm a firefighter, so I carried that knife all last fire season, and quality knife. But at the end of the year, I was like, you know, I never felt like this knife was actually mine, which I know it sounds weird. I might be a little obsessive compulsive about certain things like that, but I ended up giving it to my brother because I felt like he needed a knife. He's a firefighter as well, and I was like, well, he's getting a used knife. He's not paying for it. I sharpened it for him, and I gave it to him, and I just said, hey, here you go. And he was super stoked. And as far as I know, he hasn't lost it yet, so it's a good deal. So the difference is between this and the Paramilitary 2, is this one's shorter, as everybody knows. It still has a nice thick blade stock, which is 1600s, 156 thousandths, I don't know, something like that. which is very adequate. And I think that these are great slicers. Now, this is coming from a guy that I've used knives, but I've never owned a nice kitchen knife. I've never owned a purpose-built slicing knife, so I don't know. All I know is, like, I buy knives, like, all the knives I buy are, like, your standard issue field knives. That's what interests me. And when I buy a knife, I think about what it's like to, basically sharpen sticks with, cut willows down, that kind of a thing. Pocket knives, or folding knives. I'm not into fixed blades by any means. So growing up, I, like everybody else, either eventually my first fire season gave me a buck 110, but before that I think I'd used his buck 110. And other than that, I don't know what kind of knives I had. Swiss Army knives for the most part. I think I had at some point I had like a little Gerber, little lightweight lockback knife. But then basically became an adult, went to work. My dad gave that buck 110 my first fire season. And I had that, and then, which I actually have on hand. Probably do a review on that. But, yeah, so then the next real knife I bought myself was a Benchmade AFO, which I've mentioned previously, and that thing was a beast. But I felt bad about getting out there and just carving sticks with that nice auto Tactical knife. I just carried it for general cutting purposes, and then kind of had a purposeful whittler with me as well. And that's kind of where this guy comes in. But getting back to this knife, the thing is awesome because it's really small. I mean, like compared to like an Enduro, which to me is a small knife, but it's also big because it still has that 3 3/4 inch blade. This has as far as I know, a 3-inch blade. That's why it's called a Para 3. And it might be a little longer. I don't think it's any shorter than 3 inches. It might be like 3.05, something like that. I'm not really sure, but that's just a handy little. I think it's a great little knife for everything. I mean, it's still just as strong. You can still carve on it. The only thing is the grip. In my opinion, I do miss that Para Military 2 grip. It's longer. That's like a perfect knife, because then the 3.5-inch blade or whatever it has on it is pretty much spot on generally. So this one is really nice too because it is smaller. And I wouldn't have bought this, but when I did go, I wanted to replace to get another Para Military 2. They didn't have any, so I ended up with this. This summer I went and bought this at a Sportsman's Warehouse. And just because they had two, I don't buy the one out of the rack or out of the window, or out of the display case. I always buy them out of a box unopened, and they actually had one, so I bought it. And if they didn't, I wouldn't have bought the one out of the case. That's just the way I roll. Unless they want to knock off a whole lot of money off of it, I have no interest in paying money for a used knife. I'll pay a little extra and get a new one, or I'll just make sure that it's, like I said, unopened. Yeah. So basically, it's a really nice little knife. Ergonomically, I think it's perfect for the size. Like, I got extra large hands, and I think if I was cutting all day, perhaps I would start to rub my pinky, but I have used this and I have not experienced that yet. Also, the clip doesn't bother me at all. Like, I can grab it here, and that's pretty much where the tip of that clip ends up, between those two fingers. And then if I'm choked up like this, let's see, it kind of falls in between those two knuckles in there. So actually I have no hot spots at all on this knife. And it's just a cool little knife. I was kind of looking at getting, like, I don't know, they have a little native or something like that. It's the one with a little, I think that's what it's called, but it's G10, and it has a compression lock. And then I'm glad I ended up with this because it's probably a little bit bigger than that little native, but it's still a fully functional large knife, just in a small package. And it really is. If any of you are watching this and you have not used one of these or held one, I mean, it is the real thing. It's just smaller. However, if I had a choice between this and the Paramilitary 2, I'd definitely go with Paramilitary 2 just for my purposes previously stated. Saying that, I'm glad I have this because I will get another Paramilitary 2, and I'm going to keep this. And it will get used, I think. I don't know. I do like the other one's all blacked out, and this one's black except for the hardware. And it doesn't really show a lot of wear on that blade, which is cool. What's a good thing about Spyderco is the blades actually, the clips seem to go pretty quick, even when they're like kind of that black dark oxidized or whatever they call it, black oxide clips. This one's actually not too bad either, but as previously stated, I have not carried this knife a lot and not in the field extensively. Whereas this has been carried, but it's all polished or stonewashed or whatever. It just looks like it still looks pretty good. Actually, it looks better in real life than it does in the camera. Camera actually makes it look like it's a little worn, and it's actually not. So I don't know. I kind of like that polished. My buddy just got the KnifeWorks exclusive carbon fiber handles and the M4 blade, but it's $199, and I'm like, well, I can get carbon fiber 52-100 from Blade HQ for $175, I think is what they're asking for it. And either one of those blades, that M4, honestly, like, but I just ordered another knife, and at some point, I won't reveal what it was, but it's kind of like one of those grail knives for certain people. For me, it could be a grill knife. I mean, for me, it's gonna be super nice, like super nice. Let's just put it this way: it's not an out the front, but it is a side opening auto. And what else can I say? It's not a Benchmade, because I wanted to get an Infidel this summer, but I kind of looked at one of the sporting goods stores, and I kind of decided I just can't justify it because I can't really see a purpose for it. If they ever came out with that knife, it had a big clip point or drop point blade, I'd be interested, but it's such a skinny little thing. I just don't see a real neat reason why I would own it. Because I'm not hard on knives. I use them for what they're intended, but I do intend to use them hard, if that makes sense. You know, like, I'm not going to sit there and use this thing to pry with or hammer stuff with, but it is going to get torqued on, it is going to get twisted, it's going to be used to cut things, you know, aggressively. And these things just seem to have no problem doing that. In fact, this, which I would look at it and would think that it would, but I've used this pretty hard too, and it doesn't seem to show any signs of, you know, getting bent or torqued or anything. And I have used this one pretty hard, and this one's just that much tougher. It's a little thicker. It's got more, I don't know, it's just more rigid. I think that the G10 compared to that FRN is going to be more rigid, stronger, I would assume. And then it's got a thicker blade, and I think the pivot's actually a larger gauge. I would imagine that this pivot is thicker than this, so it's going to cause less flex. Boy, next fire season, definitely Paramilitary 2 again, and hopefully they still have those carbon M4s. I don't know, maybe I'll pick one up here as soon as I get my new knife and I can justify getting another one. That definitely would work for me. Okay, so getting back to this knife, I can't really say anything that any other reviewer has not said yet, except for it is the real deal. And for the size, which I think is small, but it's not tiny. You know, it's still a field knife. Like, if this was my knife that I carried to work every day, it would definitely work. I would just prefer the bigger, the Paramilitary 2. I would go with that personally. However, if you're like kind of a minimalist and you want to go with something smaller, highly recommended. Like, highly recommended. Like I'm trying to think of other things that, you know, someone might want that, or a Delica, or this, or a Delica, or like, you know, you're trying to decide between the three. Well, I would throw the Delica out. Instead of getting the Delica, I would definitely go with this. And then this is going to buy you a longer blade. And I think it's a little lighter weight. It might be a little lighter weight. I'm not sure on that. Both of these would do the job. But this one's smaller, so that's what you were after in the first place. I'd go with that. It's going to take up less room in your pocket, I suppose. Though, really, like that pocket space is already taken up. You know? So I don't really know what that shorter length buys you. That's kind of where I'm at. But, you know, different needs, and people know what they like, so all the power to you if you're just after a smaller knife. And I think some people even just take off the clip and toss it in their pocket, and I think that's cool. The only reason why I don't like to do that is because you got, especially where I work, you know, your pocket will have dirt and ash and crap building up into it, and then you throw your knife in there, it's just gonna collect all that crap, and that's no big deal. You can clean it out, but still. And then it's more readily accessible when it's just ready to pull out from the clip. I'm not into dropping stuff in the bottom of my pockets. It's for your hands. Just keep this thing, you know, keep your knife tucked up to the side, and then your hands go in your pockets. Yeah. All right. Well, this was another garbled discussion. But if you got any questions on this one, go ahead and ask. Okay. Have a good one.